Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 27th. It is now 10:13 a.m. And with members of the JGO and Ways and Means Committee present in this meeting, we have a quorum, and I'd like to recognize Mr. Cam Nicholas to please call a roll for the JGO committee.
For the House Standing Committee on Judiciary and Governmental Operations, Representative Edwin K. Probst.
Present.
Representative Christina M. E. Sablan.
Present.
Representative Donald M. Manglonia. Representative Richard T. Lizama. Representative Vicente C. Camacho. Representative Blas Jonathan T. Attal.
Present.
Chairwoman Selena R. Babalta.
Present.
Chairwoman, we have 4 members present.
Thank you, Claire. With Representative Donald Manglonia, Representative Richard Lizama, and Representative Vicente Camacho, they are hereby excused for today's meeting. Please call the roll for Ways and Means.
For the House Standing Committee on Ways and Means, Representative Denita K. Yangtemay. Representative Leila H. F. Staffler.
Present.
Representative Patrick H. San-Nicolas. Representative Christina M. E. Sablan.
Present.
Representative Edwin K. Probst.
Present.
Representative Richard T. Lizama. Representative Joel C. Camacho.
Present.
Representative Vicente C. Camacho. Representative Sheila J. Babalta. Representative Selena R. Babalta.
Present.
Representative Corina L. Magofnia.
Present.
Representative Donald M. Manglonia. Chairwoman, we have 6 members present.
Thank you, Claire. Representative, the chairperson for Ways and Means will be coming in a little bit later. However, the rest, Representative Yanktamai, Representative San Nicolas, Representative Lazama, Representative Camacho, and Representative Sheila Babalta are hereby excused. Thank you. Before we proceed with the adoption of the agenda, I would like to take care of some housekeeping rules. The Joint Committee appreciates minimal distractions while in session, so I ask that everyone please silence their electronic devices at this time. Thank you for your cooperation. Additionally, the recording of this joint public meeting is being conducted by the Legislative Bureau Information Technology, and I'd like to name the LB staff that are present to assist us this morning. First, we have Mr. Cam Nicholas, the LA assigned to JGO, and Ms. Claire Sablon, the LA assigned to Ways and Means. We have Council John Bradley present with us today. For IT, we have Mr. Delbert Camacho, and to keep order in today's meeting, we have Senior Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Pedro Tawai, and Mr. Will Uggan. Thank you. At this time, could I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? Motion has been made by Representative Leila Staffler to adopt today's agenda and has been seconded by Representative Tina Sablon. Are there any discussions on the motion? No discussions are concerned. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Today's agenda is hereby duly adopted. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, we will now open the floor for public comments. And prior to receiving any public comments, I'd like to remind people that you have 5 minutes, and please stick to the order of business on today's agenda. The floor is now open for public comments.
Good morning. Again, my name is Zaj Radahara, and my comments are as follows. First, I hope the council don't mind, I give birthday wishes to my mom, sorry, and a shout out to my island mama, Carmen Kaipat and family for dealing with me, and Mike Dots for bringing Christmas gifts for my kids. Anyway, what I want to say today is recently I got some information that I'd like to ask the committee to also investigate the TRIP program for fraud, waste, and abuse, as $15 million went to bring in foreigners and zero went to American citizens to bring in American citizens. As a matter of fact, one of my nonprofit proposals was to bring in, to develop Mariana's Melanated Travel Association to bring in people of color to the cinema. But they chose to fund dogs and whatever, whatever. Anyway, second, my third point is I'd like to ask this committee to investigate the hiring of overstay CW workers at CUC and various ARPA infrastructure program projects.
Excuse me, Mr. Zaji.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask you to provide public comments related to today's agenda?
Isn't that
Today's agenda is specific to boost.
so
Programs.
it can't be for ARPA? The money came out of ARPA, right?
We have to stick to today's order of business.
if it came out of ARPA, shouldn't we investigate that too? Because it is a federal program.
We're
right?
not investigating ARPA funds at this time. We're investigating the boost program.
Just to look at it. Since we already sent that up to our federal partners. So, okay, I'll finish out by saying it's my hope that our federal partners, federal law enforcement, and the Department of Defense will take heed to what's happening here in the cinema and look into this incestuous corruption that's happening here, because this is a mainland American taxpayer money. You know what I'm saying? And we're misusing this money to get a non-U.S. citizens and what have you. And I myself, we missed out, but we meet all the federal requirements. That's all I want to say. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I keep coming, because I'm waiting for justice to be served. You see what I'm saying? That's the only reason I walk up here every hearing, is because I'm waiting for justice. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zaji. Anybody else? I see that there is no other person who would like to make public comments. We will move on. And at this time, I would like to recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I have been going over and over and over and over these numbers, and I just want to point some things out to the general public about just how much inequity was displayed in this boost program. If we look at the general numbers on how many boosts were given out in throughout the islands, just looking at the island of Rota, there was $1,160 of boost with 44 participants who received money. That would be 9% of the boost totality. If you break it down, if you had given it out evenly, that would be about $26,000 per person in Rota. On Tinian, they gave out 52 different boosts, or actually, I should take that back. 52 boosts went out, but some of them were doubles, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. And that added up to $1,730,000 of the boost money that was given out, which represented about $13 million of the totality of boost. If you had broken it down to the 52 people, that if you'd done it evenly, it would have been about $33,000 per person on Tinian. So on Rota, on average, it could have been about $26,000 per person. On Tinian, it would have been about $33,000 per person. Now take this to Saipan, where they spent the other 22%. I mean, sorry, that's 78% of the money, which was about $10,550,000 for 188 boost recipients, which again, some of those are doubles. and on average, it would have been about 56,000 per person. Now, of course, those numbers per person are just averages because we all know that that was not what people received on average. If you broke down the boost numbers, the largest grants that were given were in the amounts of $20,000. And the next amount that was most frequently awarded was $50,000. After that, it was $10,000. When you look at the totality, though, and see how there were about 27 applicants who got boosted not once but twice. That means 9% of the entire 284 people who received money, 9% of those people got 2 times boosted. And when you look at those numbers, you really can see that those are quite arbitrary as well. Some groups got a 100,000 the first time, and then they got another 100,000 the next, like a couple days later. Some groups got 50,000 the first boost and got 100,000 later. When you know that this money was very finite, and you know you had so many thousands of people that were applying, it just makes you wonder, why did 9% of that group get 2 boosts? And it wasn't like they just got an extra $10,000. This was another $100,000 or another $50,000. All money that could have possibly been used to support more private businesses versus just repeating and giving more people more money that really could have helped different businesses in general. And then I heard a lot of community members asking about, what kind of businesses that did receive boosts or double boosts, and question, the struggling that they went through versus what they personally went through in their own business. And so just the inequity and the perceived unfairness of the way that the money was doled out is just something that the community is still up in arms about. I mean, I know it's the Christmas holidays, but I feel like all of this information has made a lot of people have some negative feelings out there. And I can see it. When you see these numbers and when you see these breakdowns, you would also feel that way. The things that really stand out to me in the testimonies just show that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because the accountability practices of these kinds of programs need to be better, need to be more, have fairness and also just rules involved that will help make sure that the program runs smoothly so that everyone feels like they have a fair shot. And so I share my thoughts, and I thank you all for giving me this time. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Is there any other member who would like to make comments at this time? Recognize Representative Tina Sablon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to all. So my takeaways from Secretary De Leon Guerrero's testimony last week were as follows. One, he confirmed what we have begun to gather from the previous testimonies and from the records, that there really was a lack of guidelines and standards in the design of the Boost program, including the review process. Secretary De Leon Guerrero also confirmed the lack of a written conflict of interest policy and acknowledged, at least in hindsight anyway, that there should have been one. And even though he testified, so one thing I think is worth inquiring about further, is that even though he testified that he did not coordinate his responses to the legislative subpoena ducis tecum with the other officials in the Boost program, we have observed that the responses from former Finance Secretary David Attelig and the Governor's Chief of Staff, Mr. Will Castro, are nearly identical. And it is worth noting that there are communications from Mr. Castro in the records indicating that he, Mr. Castro, will take the lead in coordinating the responses to the legislature. And Mr. Royal did testify that there was a meeting to discuss that. Secretary De Leon Guerrero also testified that he was part of the Boost planning process and was concerned from the very beginning about ensuring that the funds would be spread out as much as possible and as fairly as possible. And he ultimately agreed that there was at least the appearance of unfairness, given the outcomes that we now know One, for example, the Boost Program Administrator, the Bank of Saipan, getting the largest grant of all, and in fact getting awarded twice for a total of $500,000. We know that a few people received multiple grants and that most of those who applied received nothing at all. Secretary Deleon Guerrero was additionally concerned that there would still be money to distribute every time there was an extension of the deadline in this program, and there were at least 3 extensions, but that he relied on the assurances of others, namely former Finance Secretary Attilig, as well as Mr. Castro, that more money would be coming into this program. And I think it's worth noting that what is consistent among the testimonies of Mr. Arroyo from the Bank of Saipan and Secretary De Leon Guerrero is that the one person that was in many ways directing and leading the Boost program, issuing instructions, and really acting in some ways as the conductor of this orchestra was really the Chief of Staff, Mr. Will Castro, and who was representing the Office of the Governor in this program. And that those testimonies are they're consistent with each other, but inconsistent with Mr. Castro's representation of his role in this program. Finally, one of my main takeaways from Secretary De Leon Guerrero's testimony was that I was surprised to hear when he testified that he himself did not participate in the review of any Boost applications, although he was identified as a member of the review panel by both Mr. Castro and Mr. Arroyo. Secretary De Leon Guerrero testified that he delegated that role of review panelist to the Director of Economic Development, Mr. Jesus Taisagui, whom we will hear from further today. And that's it for my recap, Madam Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Sablon. I'd like to add to that, and I agree, there were minor discrepancies in testimonies today, but that's human nature, given that it has been months since a lot of these conversations took place, and other than the WhatsApp and text messages and emails that we received, we often have to rely on memory and the memory of witnesses. But I agree that Mr. Arroyo and Secretary of Commerce Edward De Leon Guerrero were consistent throughout their testimonies, and in contradiction to Mr. William Castro's testimony that he was merely providing guidance and recommendations. Both Mr. Arroyo and Secretary De Leon Guerrero have consistently said that Mr. William Castro provided more than just guidance and recommendations. In fact, Mr. Arroyo said Mr. Castro played a bigger role than that. Furthermore, Mr. Arroyo and Mr. Castro and Mr. De Leon Guerrero have also repeatedly said that Mr. David Attelig, the Secretary of Commerce, I'm sorry, Secretary of Finance, played a significant role in the approval of disbursement of public funds, including approving receipts unrelated to the Boost program. And today we will be introducing, for the record, the initial reply to the subpoena ducis tecum provided by the Bank of Saipan. And Mr. Cam, can I get an exhibit number for that, please? Sure. It comes in 8 parts, by the way, so we will need 8 numbers. Part of the initial reply from the Bank of Saipan includes the WhatsApp and text messages between Mr. William Castro and Mr. John Arroyo. It includes a list of awardees and the amounts. It includes The Bank of Saipan's reply to the subpoena ducis tecum in our request for documents. So that will be 8 exhibits total. They gave it in 8 parts. Also, we will introduce for the record the initial response of the Secretary of Finance, which will also be an exhibit. And this exhibit lists the 241 awardees with the amounts associated to each awardee. We will also introduce the initial response of the Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Edward de Leon Guerrero, which includes a list of those who were granted certificates of existence, one of the required documents in support of an application for boost funds. And we will also include Mr. William Castro's initial response to the subpoena ducis tecum, including his summary report. Also, at this time, we will be introducing for the record, thereby making it public record, the marketing expenses provided by the Bank of Saipan last week. That is my takeaway based on the previous testimonies of the other witnesses that we have already heard from. Are there any other members who would like to make comments? No. Do you have any comments? Okay, thank you. There are no other members. At this time, good morning, Mr. Jesus Taisugui. Thank you for coming. May we please invite you to come into the chamber so that our legal counsel can swear you in.
Can you please raise your right hand and state your name?
Jesus Taisagui,
Do you solemnly
Which one,
swear
Becca,
under the
second?
penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Taisagui. And at this time, I would like to recognize Representative Bloss Jonathan Atto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Taisagui. Welcome to your chamber.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record and your position, your title, your position.
Inano si Jesus Taisagui, gawi presente na Director para Economic Development Division para Department of Commerce.
How long have you been in your current position?
About a year.
When were you first made aware of the implementation of the Boost program?
Kasi around in April
April 2022?
2022.
What is your role in the Boost program?
Gawi designated no representative para Secretary of Commerce para ba you sauno mo review boost business plans dyan lokwi para ba presenta para madiskuti resulta ni doku review dyan lokwi para ba no afedzinan niya no nangasa check zoku thoughts ko ni mogi no to collectively arrive at the consensus recommendations to advance para governor's dispositions.
Okay. Who asked you to serve in that capacity?
Secretary of Commerce no mo designado para ba representative review panel. Lo, anay afaisinzu pa bay representagwi kalanwasun no nayunen no. Sapot rason active zu gi private sectors. Sa guaha lokwi izoku siya no business interests. Sa lokwi guaha izoku siya no business associates. Law po di izoku role no izoku job responsibilities no basically para by no encourage then no through development of no and create programs ni sina encourage then lokwi para no stimulate economic then lokwi economic no diversification by developing local entrepreneurs. Destigi na responsibility and designado para by who representagwi gi review panel utulis na responsibilidad guatu gilamasan i-review panel no kumo representantin gi para commerce.
Is the appointment documented anywhere?
Ay magay natin madokumento still lo madesignado.
By word of mouth?
Yes.
Word of mouth, okay. Okay, briefly describe your duties and responsibilities under the BOOS review panel. No? So did you participate in the development of the program?
Ay ti participate gi development ni program. Izoku role basically just to review business plans no dyan lokwi no to present for discussion dyan lokwi to collectively arrive in a consensus recommendations.
Okay. Who was present for any meetings developing the BOOST program?
Gikinamprende ko gi ma-develop i-boost program manggaigi tres ta komite which is the Secretary of Finance, the Chief of Staff, then Secretary of Commerce.
Excuse me a moment, Rep. Ato. I would like to ask Representative Leila Staffler, Representative Sablon, and Representative Probst, are you okay with okay, you can follow along.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, thank you, Talu. Mr. Taisagoy, briefly describe the application process from beginning to end.
Application process gikinamprende ko na janggim poro fanaplika kompanya debirino na holo medisya prerequisite ni man advertise gi boost no web page tat kumo debino na holo business plans debino na holo company profile debino na holo letter of interest business license dan lokwi no certificate of no existence dan sa kaso na corporation pat no limited liability company dan lokwi no debidi no submiti halum no tax clearance.
Okay, so just must know. What is your role as a review panelist?
It's role as a review panel is limited para by review business plans no dan lokwi no para by presenta para madiskuti dan lokwi para by arrive into collective consensus recommendations.
Okay, so just to review?
Just to
basically?
review, yes.
Okay. No
Or
recommendation.
representa
Commerce.
e-commerce, yes.
Okay. Who were the other members of the review panel?
Members of the review panel, Secretary of Finance and the Chief of Staff.
During those meetings, were all three of you present at every single
Meeting
period,
of
reviewing documents?
Guana ba Guana Dosa, Guaniamia, and the Chief of Staff.
In your recollection, how many meetings happened for reviewing the documents?
Hmm. If my mind serves me right, that's 65 today. No. Uh, Mga na by guess.
So
No,
roughly
I
10,
can
15,
kasi maskin no kasi.
about 20.
No, I cannot recall. Yeah, I'll be guessing is that.
Okay, so but these review panel meetings happen when? Let's say August to November, or
Wahan no man masusedi siya ginin in between no na time. Ginin August up to November hanggang.
we're asking this specific question because you mentioned that the boost program was planted in April of 2022
No, when I became aware.
when you became aware.
Yes.
Okay. But you were designated, what date were you designated? What month?
Either late July or August.
July or August?
Mm.
Okay, when you joined the review panel or the boost program, when you were aware of the boost program, what was your understanding of the role of Will Castro in the boost process?
Ti anay aware jo po di boost program sa po di position no ni e-commerce. We're always on the lookout for opportunity ni sinya para by develop local entrepreneurs. To go comprende is on involvement gina time. No esta ki participate jo jan i secretary no ja gi durante ni joko observation no uli na kulan wiza no kulan mulilit mo na programa.
Okay, so basically, from your understanding, is Will Castro was the lead of the program.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. How about the Secretary of Finance?
Uh, i Secretary of Finance ang gian gumaygizo no mas po di bandan financial.
Okay, so when you started, the Secretary of Finance had reserved. What was the amount that was reserved for the boost program? When you
Gikin
started?
emprende ko no matug attention no kalan mo no i 10 million.
10 million.
Mm.
Okay, we asked this Mozogi newspaper no na 6 million, gwa 11 million, gwa 12 million, gwa 15 million.
No kulan gi kinen predict ko loki gwana biyain matulay ka gwani tigo chloro di na gwana biyain kulan na afay di magay na figura lo enigi na figura di todo tempo no mamention na
10 million.
10 mil. Yeah.
Okay. Ano ipalabras mo, no? With what you just said, that the figures were changing. Did you question the other two members or possibly just the Secretary of Finance of why the numbers keep changing?
Beyond is okay na scope na ti question no siya sa taigi juga no na komite.
Yeah, I understand. No, guy, you're part of the review process and you're looking at these documents and some, or just by the basic numbers of the total amounts, it's already beyond the $10 million.
Ay gianay official jo pa by no sono gi medicine gi review panel i 10 million i kanan prende ko. Yeah.
But just reviewing all the documents as an economics guy, you already knew that it was beyond the $10 million that was being
Ungan no comprende na i 10 million no afajananya with the number of applicants. And I think na irusuto no sa podi ma-extendi. Lo gimagay na itang ginti ma-extendi. Kasi sinyahan no munahong geno lo podi ma-extendi.
on Sana extendi. So were there any brought up reasons why they would extend the program?
Gikan ang prende ko sa nido ko recollection and ifinina ma-extendi no ma-mensiona na podibula no incomplete no packets. Da poro manoya oportunidad siya i man incomplete packets niya pero umasad miti halong jaw man complete ko sa kisinya man makonsidera.
Okay. Because in essence, Kulan, you're almost penalizing those individuals that provided complete documents.
No ipoposituniste na program no gikan ang prende ko para majuda no as many no small businesses as possible.
Sure.
Yes.
And that's potentially the understanding, no?
Mm.
But there's a lot of businesses that provided clean, full documents that the review panelists could have reviewed already. But some of the documents that were being reviewed are missing certain documents, and the review panel are sending it back to the Bank of Saipan to contact these individuals to complete their packages. But at the same time, they're holding on to those documents.
Ay no timaw ho ni sa guaha no review panel para review session para siya i man complete esta.
Yeah, though you also mentioned, Mr. Taisegui, that the extensions happen because of individuals not having complete documents.
Ongga
No.
dinansya no loti ko mekeleg niya na pumara i process.
Understanding,
Mm.
lo, I guess there's a lot, the money's there, and they could have been dishing out the boost program to those that have completed the document.
Ayun nga no gikan prende ko ini no
That was happening.
that ini
Okay.
masusedi yeah. Ay
Okay.
timaho i esta man complete sa pot pamanangay iti man incomplete.
Okay.
Mm.
So were there any regulations or conditions for the boost program written? But for you guys in the review panel, were there something that you, as a panelist, that would maybe look at the qualifications of each businesses outside of just the business plan, the letter of support, todo, no?
Gi mana available na informasyon para go como reviewer na basically enoa gi business plan.
A business
Yeah,
plan.
enoa i ma require po fan masubmit ti hall.
Okay. The Taza documented. There's no written document, just hearsay. This is the panelists, and if their documents are complete, we move on, get it to the next level for approval.
Yeah, tawaza no enoa na process available para go.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So, okay, just last question, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. You mentioned earlier that the applicant shall have all the complete documents through the website of the Boost program, correct?
No o informasyon ma post gi website.
Yes.
Yes.
And which is almost like a double-edged sword, no, for the idea of getting new businesses to drive our economy forward, no, is how does a brand new business come up with a good standing? One of the requirements is basis of good standing. How does a new business provide the panelists with the good standing reference when they're new business?
Well, I think it's a certificate of existence na ginin e-commerce ma issue ginin e-commerce. Basically it's na dokumento ileleg niya ha na unmeet todo do i requirement e-commerce. And yung register i-kumpanya mo. Update is mo annual report. Then todo na siya ni required of a company, whether it's a corporation, but no LLC. It's a certificate of existence. Ilaling yan na legitimate is mo company existing galo ni cinema. It's not, they don't call it good standing, they call it certificate of existence. Mm.
On the Boost website, it says one of the requirements is good standing.
Dinansyo na
No.
question na Secretary of Commerce na Naling in inigi parewa dyan ni good standing ko mekiling niya you're in good standing sa no taje jo mo deficiency gi jo mo no corporate documents.
Okay, that's submitted to Commerce already. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tyson. I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Tyson.
Good
I
morning,
just have
Ma.
one follow-up on the Vice Speaker's question in regards to your role as a panel. Can you just briefly go over the steps from start to finish, from the moment you walk into that room, the review applications, up until the time that these companies get on the list to be sent to the governor? How do you proceed as soon as you step into the door?
Well, no jangin maaga ni session para review. No fineni na no available para go basically di lista. Listang kompanya iman ma-valid ni Bank of Saipan. No? Base ganon na lista na no in gizagawa o adjik galon ipayon i boxes. No? Sagi kinumprende ko na stimulus program. No? Law it's a program na poro revitalize, to enhance, then we expand is in my tax base. Ini kinumprende ko. Lokwe afo truly guati ke lamasan ni review panel basically ginin e-commerce goal need to encourage and is to stimulate economic and diversification by developing local entrepreneurs. Nieno na kinemprende ko na ti stimulus o comprendiha na ti todo teniki no man miresi. Especialmente giza guawo ni uchuchili guato responsabilidad to guato gi review panel como representantin gini ni commerce. Pero ang gino malum zo na igwe, taja available na process para guawo is basically para by review i masubmit siya ginin i aplikante siya ni man ma-valid ni Bank of Saipan. Gugo na u-review idji guaya siya watang galumidji. Para ba na make sure na no ami ijun e-commerce go. No? No bula waatan galum i business plan, i merit galum i business plan. Waatan ko unique isti na business plan. No? Ko isti na business plan no para promote job opportunities. No? Ko isti na business plan no manesisita winigi cinema sa tigof megay na klasin no business winigi giza cinema. Waatan lokwi ko no unique. Dangin lekku unique waatan ko po promote lokwi zota culture and traditions. No? No waatan lokwi no offer siya i kapasidad i manahanti siya para isti na kumpanya. Waatan lokwi no isay si kumpanya. Dan lokwi waatan lokwi no hafa proposito niya ni pumausa i funding ni mapipiga holo no plano niya gizo niya business plan. Based on na review based on istisya na elements na no. Upresente mo pago pa discussion guato gi members siya. No. No galuneno no we come up with a collective consensus recommendation by governor.
Thank you. But so as soon as you walk in, do you pick your stack? Does Will Castro pick a stack? Does Secretary of Finance pick a stack, or you all just focus on one stack first? How is that process done?
Gipargowen no tisina by sangan tema anu po no atsukin maisa siya ni logone ay pika stack no jawatan ko amide di siya na element siya na affid i Department of Commerce goals ni to encourage then no to stimulate economic development.
Okay, I get that. Thank you.
Okay.
But so all you three pick different stacks to review?
Yeah, todos amin no we pick a stack to review.
Okay, so as soon as you review your stack,
Mm.
what happens next? Do you just you take one company and then you come as a panel and decide on that one company, or you switch stacks and you review the wheel stack? How
No,
does that
since
go?
since government guys siya na pakete na it's again no submit halong for discussion. No, ja kada uno na a
Mr.
discuti.
Taisagui,
Yes.
excuse me.
Mm.
I will be providing an interpretation in English for our
Mm.
viewing public.
Okay.
They're asking, so proceed. You can answer in Chamorro
Okay.
now. I'll try.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just was it. No, it's again na ileko na review pe su presenta quatu
That is why
Para
I said
discussion.
and I present to them.
no presenta quatu no ja in discuti i merits gi isti na pakete.
Present to them and discuss the merits of this package.
Yes. Gigi siya gitagawa neste. Gigi siya na elements nesta u diskuti.
Okay, so you, for example, you would review one whole packet and then
Mm.
explain that packet to the panel, so they don't see that same packet.
No, they do.
Right.
They do see the same packets.
Okay, but each of you have your own packets, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's of us have our own packets. Sa bulalan no na pakete
There are
tisina
a
ni
lot
ji
of
na class.
packages.
Bulalan na pakete ni ji no tinawang tempo tenki janggil sa kaso na kado no poro potaite the same na pakete.
There are a lot of packages
Mm.
and we don't
Mm.
have enough time to
Mm.
review all of
Mm.
them.
Okay. So then how does earlier it sounded as though you would pick as soon as you review your packet, you would present that
Yes,
company
for
to the
discussion.
other two panel members for discussion, and that you would recommend to the other two panels what you thought about that packet. So why do you need to recommend when they also would need to see the packet?
O recommenda afa I resultun izoku review.
I'm recommending the results of my review.
Okay. But then do you do any sort of rating as to the different criterias that you're looking for in a company?
No. Guaha rubrics.
There is rubrics, a rubrics.
Lo gimana available para guaho no basically para by usa as a guide. Basically para by usa as a guide.
Basically, that I will use for a guide.
And did you mark your ratings on an application?
Yeah, magay.
Answers in the negative.
All right. I still have a few more, but I'll allow other members to ask any follow-up if they have any. I recognize Rep. Staffler.
Thank you, chairs. Thank you, Mr. Taisagui. You mentioned that you take a stack. Who sets the stacks?
Kaya galong boxes siya.
Who sets it in the boxes? Like, do they put it in a certain order or do they just put it random?
They just to recall my right ko use of observation ko it's in order but random lo.
In my observation, I don't recall whether it's in
Yeah.
order.
Who puts it in the box that you take or the stack?
I really don't know who puts it in that, but I process na, no? I intake I Bank of Saipan.
The process is that Bank of Saipan does the intake.
So, danggin para ba tatidya no na process,
If I was to follow that
sinya by
process,
assume na
I
kasi
can
Bank
assume
of Saipan pumega todo galo ni
that
box.
Bank of Saipan put all of them in a box.
And you said that you don't mark your rubric, right? You don't mark it.
Oh,
How do you remember all of the applications you review? Because not all of the applications you reviewed got boosted, right? Like some of them you didn't get consensus, or did you get consensus for every application that you've?
Gidok ko recollection
Based on my recollection,
todo iti siya i-review. We
all
have a
those that I review,
consensus.
So everyone that
Reached
you
a
bring to
consensus.
light
Mm,
is what you guys agree on.
yes.
You've never disagreed on one of your applicants.
Not to my recollection that of disagreeing.
So how do you remember what your scoring is for your rubric if you don't mark it?
Gidok ko recollection is not on a scoring system, but on the merits of we just
How do you
kinda
measure
discuss it.
that? How do you measure that? Like, how do you quantify it? Because when you're comparing something, you have to have one better than the other. But how do you quantify that? Put a number to it if you don't put numbers down at all.
Sa ting quantify na no?
because we don't quantify it.
I-packets no review
The package that I review,
kumuli na ani dito siya na elements
if I see that it meets those elements,
o presenta za no indiscuti istigi no recommenda isti.
I present it and we discuss it and recommend it.
How do you come to a collective consensus? Like what is the process to come to a collective consensus?
Isto a collective consensus is basically on it's an everyone input gi kada pakete na no gizo ko pakete sa goni siya na istigi na elements no atan isti malago na be recommenda.
In my package,
It
this
happens
is what
na
I
di kada tayo
recommend.
no we just okay esta
So every single
Okay.
one that you guys brought to the table got money. You
Got
never
awarded.
denied any award.
not to my recollection.
How many applications did you review?
Utungan na make a review
I know that I reviewed a lot,
lo janggin pa be asu pogo kala nag-guess and kilutungan na make a
but if
review.
I was to recall them, I would be guessing. But I know that I reviewed a lot.
How did you decide to give a second award for some of these businesses?
I guess estes ta mavedi estes ten review no siya na sa gi
I guess it was already vetted. We've already
Ye-
reviewed that. The
guaha no communication na mamaisin i chief of staff pa ben fanali para
there
ben
is communication that the chief
diskutin
of staff asked us
no
to
i
meet
second round.
for the second round.
The gibase ki second round
And based on the second round,
no inata na siya man manoi gi first round.
we
Then
looked
nigi
at
na
who
determina
was
na para u fan manoi ni
given
second
the
round.
first round, and that would determine who would be getting the second round.
Mm.
How did you guys decide on the amounts to award for the first or second round?
To collective consensus.
So was there an actual process of like a scoring mechanism to say why certain businesses deserved 100,000 versus 5,000? Is there any way to show your process? Or was it just pull the number out of a hat?
Well,
Because
There was none.
taza process no
There's
available
no
para go
process
para
available
by
for me.
no law. Inatana no
But
we
we-
arrive at a consensus ko.
No.
Wala naman differences si John money
arrived
no
At a consensus, and there are differences.
no recommendation lo, but at
And
the end of the day we gotta move this no applicant
you said
advance
so
for the government.
yourself earlier when
Mhm.
Rep Atal was asking that you knew that the money wasn't enough. So if you knew the money wasn't enough, why would you give a second round to the same businesses that already received money when you knew there were businesses who were waiting and they didn't get a second round or they didn't even get a first round? Some of the second rounds were over $100,000.
I know
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One of them was 200,000. 8, 9, 10 people got over $100,000 in the second round.
it's a statement got to guess
My statement too.
Congressman
Congressman
Acto.
Ato,
Anay fineni na anay 10 million.
when the first 10 million,
No. Pesa anay ma extend din ay.
then when they extended,
Izi naliliko na
That's why I
sinya
said-
kasi tumanao.
Some of these
Law.
were
Not be
given
enough.
out in the second, like a week later, not even 2 weeks.
Lo
but
afati mention anay tima
what I
faisin zo.
didn't mention, what I wasn't asked,
Anay pero ma extend finena anay.
what they were going to first extend it.
Irason sa bulat timang complete ito niya packets.
The reason was
No?
that a lot of the packages were incomplete.
Anay para ma extendi talo.
When they were going to extend it again,
Mamaisin zo afa na pero ma extendi.
I asked why it was going to be
Kogwaha sa
extended.
lopi.
Is there money?
Imopeko unggan gwaha po ma-infuse talwal.
The reply was that they would infuse more.
Who said that they would infuse more money?
Si Mr. Castro.
Thank you. So far, all the witnesses that have appeared before the Joint Committee have said they do not have regulations. There's no accountability plan or some kind of rules to this boost. Do you know if there are regulations or conditions to the boost program? Do you have anything in writing?
Di sino opien no sabihan ni Joko scope no.
Cannot reply to that. That is beyond my scope.
Logi anay pabay review.
But what I was
Tawsa
going to
available
review,
ni
there was
pabay
nothing
review
available
ijwa pabay review business
for
plan
me to review.
da pabayatan from
That's
the
all I
commerce
reviewed was the
perspective
business
ko
plan,
amid ko
commerce
gaigi di siya na
perspective,
elements da
if they
based
meet
on
those
no
elements,
usamiti halong para discussion
so that I can submit them for discussion
then loqui to collectively arrive at a consensus
and to
recommendation.
collectively arrive at a consensus.
So you definitely know business plans.
Yes.
Did you assist anyone to help develop their own business plan?
Waha izoku responsibility
I have a responsibility.
as commerce
As
economic development pa ben provide technical
Commerce, economic
assistance.
development. to
Did you
assistance.
provide technical assistance to any person who received a boost?
They've contacted me. They asked me how to put together a business plan. Pues my response is, there's a template for that. You can go over what to SBDCs on maajudoji.
Did you assist anyone
You can go to
personally
SBDC and be
with
helped.
their business plan?
Personally, no.
Are you sure?
To review and give recommendation on gan.
You were never paid by anyone to assist with their business plans?
No.
Would you say that you personally assisting anyone with their business plans would be a conflict of interest because you're on the panel itself?
Ano truly ano acceptais ti na
What
role para by halum that
Accepted
representa Secretary of
to
Commerce.
go in to represent the Secretary of
Utuli
Commerce. I
is
took
din na responsibility
this
watu
responsibility
gi lamasan i-review panel.
the table of the
No.
review panel.
cognizant Ju Neno ko conflict ko pati conflict
I'm
ko.
cognizant whether
No.
I am in conflict or not.
O disclose ano guato ay para may punta
I disclosed that when I was going to be appointed
ni para by represent i Secretary of
to
Commerce
represent the Secretary of
na
Commerce.
kolan esitedo neno sa guaha activo gi private sectors.
And I was hesitant because I was
Mm.
active in the private sector.
Kang guaha siya lokido ko business associates.
And
No.
I have business associates.
So cognizant no neno na janggin sa
So
kaso
I'm cognizant
na
of that,
guaha sininte ko na conflict ko igino recused to.
that if I feel I have a conflict of interest, I will recuse.
Laweno iko para uadzudoji individual para by u
But
no
whether I assisted
put
an
on your business
individual
plan, that's
with
part
their
of my
business
responsibility.
plan, that is part of my duties.
Were you paid anything outside of your salary of commerce to do anybody's business plan in to submit to Boost?
Not to my knowledge. And I can honestly say no.
Okay. One of the emails dated November 3rd from Will Castro, he wants to ensure everyone is on the same page of the Boost approval process and safeguard the integrity of the program. Would you consider the approval process neutral and administered by a non-government party, third party? Would you consider the Boost program neutral and administered by a non-government third party?
I have no comment on that.
Who does the
It's
final
beyond-
approval?
It's beyond my scope of my designation.
Well, you were participating. You don't have an opinion if it was a neutral process.
I wasn't participating.
You were participating in the review process.
Oh,
You
in
were on
the
a review panel.
in the review process, and I have my role in there as to how I participate.
Was it a neutral process in your opinion?
Yeah, are you talking about the program or are you talking about my review?
The review process. Do you feel like it was a neutral process?
I think so.
Who does the final review, final approval?
To my understanding, the final approval is the governor.
How is that a neutral, non-government third party if the final approval is the governor?
Well, I'm just assuming because it's the expenditure authority.
Thank you. I rest.
I recognize Rep. Ropes.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Tyson. I just want to backtrack a little bit on some of your comments. Going back earlier, when you said there were a lot of packages and that you admitted that you and your panelists didn't have enough time to review them all. Is this correct?
I'm
You
not
sta-
saying enough time lo janggin in segwi gidzi na klasin no format ikada uno para review kada pakete no review teniki no timonaong tempo.
I'm not saying that there wasn't enough time, but if I was to review what the others have reviewed, there would not be enough time.
Okay. There certainly was not enough time because this is something that I had brought up when we had other testimony. I was concerned because you had thousands of these packets to review, thousands of submissions to review. And you said something that was important about the time for three people, three panelists to review professionally, precisely, properly, thousands of them. And then you made a comment that just said it all to me, that there was no process available when asked by Representative Stafford about the scoring, about the rubric. And you had mentioned there was no process available. Is that correct?
Waha process.
There is a process.
What is the process?
That process is basically to review the business plans, and
How-
to present it for discussion.
How did you score it, sir?
Todd's scoring system.
Thank you. So there was no scoring process.
It's just based on conversations, sharing of the merit kada no business plans, gigoho gibanda ni commerce. Ito mensiona siya of an element ang giyan uwatan kada business plan para tayo mano ni para by no recommenda no para advance ulo pa ikubit mo.
Mr. Taisagui, you were giving away second awards over hundreds of thousands of dollars, second awards, when you did not even review all of the packets. Is that correct?
Second award, basically estama review ano siya na packets.
The second award, basically, those are packets that have already been reviewed.
I understand that. But there were still more packets to review. Is that not correct?
Unggan din ang siya.
Answers in the affirmative.
Lumalago so lokin na ba mensiona talo na.
But I'd like to mention
Nagikinon
also,
prende ko na stimulus system na programa.
in my understanding, this is not a stimulus program.
In fact, ma-publish gi
In fact, it was
The-
published
Boost web page
on the Boost webpage,
na ililig niya gwi na i-application
and it says that the application
is subject to the availability of funds. I think ko coded zigwini gizok ko thoughts no
The point I am making, Mr.
kay lilig niya gwini
and it says here,
na applications will be processed subject to the availability of funds. The program may be terminated without advance notice. Ma-publish isti,
this was published.
no? Pues janggin aplikante o na. Tidebi no non demanda na para
So if you're an
unmanoi
applicant, you cannot demand
sa
that you
esto
would
ang
be given,
tunguha that is subject for funds availability.
because you already know that it
No.
is
Tiku-
subject to a
ti-
funds
ti-
availability.
Ti stimulus isti.
This is not a
Medyo na
stimulus.
klase na i-program stimulus program siya na ma-divided sa fairly man manoy todo como $500 man manoy todo $500.
Like the other stimulus program,
Di
that if it's
kinaprende
500
ko
per person, we all
istin na
get 500.
programa is basically to revitalize,
Like I
dyan to
mentioned,
enhance economic condition gisinimay,
this
dyan to
program,
expand isinimay tax base. Pues istigi na espiritu as a review panel ni representa i Secretary of Commerce
so in this spirit
dyan ni
is
Joko
how I represent the
responsibility
Secretary of Commerce and
uchuli watu para ilamasan
responsibility.
i-review panel.
that I bring to the table of the review panel.
Thank you, Mr. Taisagui. But without any proper rubric in place, the fact that you were giving out second awards without reviewing fairly all of the awards, you prematurely gave out second awards, rewarded some businesses without even looking or considering all the remaining packets that were turned in. And you have to say, yes, I understand. We all understand this is not a stimulus, but this is a grant, sir. And your process so far, today's testimony shows that it was completely subjective. Completely subjective because you talk about a consensus that did not exist, sir. The consensus that you speak of, where there is no process, real process available when it came to actual scoring or when it came to giving out the amounts. That is a huge concern for every single person that spent time and effort in turning in these applications only to be told that they did not receive any. Yet others were receiving second, not just the first award, but the second one without a complete review of every single packet. And it was based, as you said in your testimony, upon availability of funds. Yet you panelists had no, and including the Chief of Staff, Will Castro, those responsible for this had no problem extending the deadline, sir. Did you not extend the deadline? Did you not make that decision to extend the deadline?
I did not make that decision to extend the deadline.
So
I am
who made
not-
that decision?
It was the committee.
Are you part of the committee?
I am not part of the committee. I am just a designated representative of Department of Commerce in the review panel.
So the committee consists, could you tell me who consists of this committee that
The
made that
Secretary of
decision?
Finance, the Chief of Staff, and the Secretary of Commerce.
Did you ever, as a panelist, consider asking advice from the Grants Management Office under the Office of the Governor?
No,
Did you ever, when reviewing these awards and panels, say that there's so many, we should seek help? Did you ever consider asking for assistance, professional assistance, anything whatsoever?
no.
So you felt that even though there was no scoring system in place, no proper rubric in place, that the amounts that you were giving out was subjective, that this process was still fair and it was still okay. Is that correct?
No comment on that.
Can you repeat your question, Rep. Probst?
Let me simplify it. Do you feel, based on everything that we're reviewing right now, that this process that you participated in which you gave out second awards without reviewing all of the awards, was fair to everyone that submitted uh, for a boost grant?
Mr. Tyson?
Napapansin ko, inasok ko fair pati fair.
He's asking me whether I think it's fair or not fair.
Gitoro chetsu mami, gitoro chetsu, todo tempo, o
Yeah.
considera na fair.
In all our work, in all my work, I consider it to be fair.
Mr. Tyson, as a panelist, did you and your fellow panelists do any checks or any review to make sure that this business, in fact, existed or was open?
Go rely jo gi dokumento ni manaholum,
I relied on the document that was submitted,
a certificate of existence.
the certificate of existence.
Did you consider, when you were debating these, on your awards, did you consider the unfairness when some businesses just became incorporated in August of 2022 who had nothing to do with COVID, who just opened up a business by paying a business license, yet received hundreds of thousands of dollars? Does that seem fair to you when other businesses were existing during COVID, suffering, still struggling to pay taxes, even taking out loans?
Di kinumprende ko na este na program para todo
Based on my understanding of this program, it is for everyone.
na manaadjanggen anaholum I todo di dokumento niya sa kabalis.
If they submit all their documents and it is complete.
I'm going to finish this up, yield, but not with a question, but just wanted to comment that even with that, Mr. Taisagui, I want you to realize your testimony today and the fact that there are still thousands who still haven't gotten an answer, who have not been reviewed, who existed during the toughest time of businesses during the pandemic, didn't receive a penny, but some who did not take any risk whatsoever based on a $50 business license or whatever, received $100,000 and more. I find that very sad. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. I recognize Vice Chair Makofia.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Tyson. We
Good
welcome to
morning.
your chamber. I just have some follow-up questions in regards to the boost, the business plan. So earlier you stated that part of your review process is to review the business plans, right?
Enggan,
Can you share with this committee your experience in reviewing business plans?
enggan.
Can you share? Like
Kasi
what
tao share dyan si Rep no Manglonia.
specific? Okay.
I've already shared it with Rep.
Okay, not a
Donald
problem.
Magnolia.
Okay. So what specifically are you looking for in a business plans when you're reviewing them?
Watan basically the business plan ko mega este na businesses on the island pad manisisita.
I look at the business plans, whether there are a lot of businesses here with respect to the business plan that he is
Is
looking
that
at.
the only criteria that
Ay,
you're-
teno na criteria.
Okay, what are other?
Esto lista este na criteria gato yes Rep
No,
Donald.
that is not the only criteria. I've
Hmm.
already listed the criteria to Rep. Donald
Lomela
Magnolia.
talo da by you no
I'd like to
sangana
ask
na
you to repeat. Would you repeat
No.
it to Representative in response to Representative Donald Magnolia?
no uno talo atan uniqueness of business.
Mhm.
Is
One
on a business
other-
plan. No.
One
Your
other
true
criteria I
watan
look at
lokwi
is the uniqueness of the
size
business
business.
and the size of the
No.
business.
Kwana biya ni di mos gi
Sometimes
responsibility tu atan ni siya i mandikiki siya na business sa di siya munisita mos atutu.
my responsibility, I look at small businesses who need help.
Jan ginilek ko
I
ko
say,
kantida isti pati kantida kay gwini ko jan gin restaurant ko megagay restaurant gwini na. No. So uno na responsibilidad to is basically to encourage and stimulate economic diversification. Just to sanga na no.
one of my responsibilities is economic diversification.
Watan lokwi I manmanenti lokwi ko man qualificao. No
I also look at the management to see if they're
gi level of
qualified
izunian no businesses.
and the
No.
level of their businesses.
No otro talo watan no
Another thing,
no afa man maapilika temano ni po mausa
I look
I
at
fondo
is what are they
ni
applying
man
for
masasangan ni po matsokwi. No?
and what they intend to do with the money.
Kasi ni siya na elements no sinakwatalo lo sila kasi ti aswa feno siya ni.
Those are the elements, but
O otro
some I may
talo
not
na
remember.
magtugi attention no. Kuga potential for export. Sagi commerce nigi basically in kikitsogwi pabeng create no cinema export products. Kasi ni talo na elements watan ko kugwa is on na business potential to export is on na product and services. No. No. Kasi ni gi on top of gi is a recollection. Yeah.
So small, say, Mr. Tyson, we need
Okay.
some more clarification. Would you say that that's the same criteria that the other panel members were using when reviewing?
Tisina no komento so po the other panel o nigi basically go como uno na panel reviewer.
I cannot
Nigi
speak for
elements
the
siya
other
no lili.
panelists, but I
Mm.
can speak as to his participation in the panel.
So one of the criteria is uniqueness, right?
Mm.
Could you give us some examples of that?
Uno na uniqueness is basically ko
One of the uniqueness
gwizaha
is,
isti na kompanya
is this the only company
no promovava isti na product and
providing
services.
this product or services?
Ko isti na kompanya at promomo no isota culture and traditions.
Is this company promoting our culture?
No. Inigi na uniqueness watan. Yeah.
So I'm just
That's the
curious
uniqueness.
before this whole program rolled out was did the panel or the members, the team, I mean, knowing that we had limited funding for this particular grant, was there any type of structure on the allocation of the funding with regards to how much to give to small businesses, to nonprofits, and all the other programs that subsequently came after? I mean, there was a limited fund. How do you know how many applications to approve for uniqueness for small businesses for, you know, things like that.
Dispensa neno sa gimakaet no gikinumprende ko taod sa
Sorry
neno
for
na.
that.
No.
It is my understanding
No.
that doesn't
Taod
exist.
sa i kinumprende ko pa ba togwi no para ba review wa i packets. No. No pago pot kwanto tetenan o relies on an information gi Department of Finance, no? Sa hindi na manggagay no pot bandan sa lapi. Its role is basically to review, no, and to recommend. No, in no way is role.
Okay.
Hmm.
In the business plan, it would show the spending plan, right? I
Okay.
mean, that's how you determine what they are requesting versus what you recommend to
Okay.
award them.
Hmm.
And so, in that business plan where the funds, where the figures are stated, how do you substantiate that? Where financial statements attached to the business plan? Like what other source documents do you look at to substantiate the business plan?
Well, tawag sa no requirement for submitting
There's no
no
requirement
projection,
to
financial projection or financial
submit a
statement.
financial
Uh,
projection or financial statement.
Tawag sa gi requirement.
So you
That
would
is not in
just
the
take
requirements.
the word of the applicant. So if they're requesting 500,000 to open a mini snack bar, for instance, or just, I don't know, a small shop, right? If they
Mm.
were requesting for 500,000, you would just take their word for it.
Gizo niya business plan. Ngan.
So there are no
From their business
other
plan, yes.
sources that you would look at to determine whether or not the funds that they are requesting is fair and legitimate, and not just asking for like the sky's the limit, right? You're just asking for whatever funds that's available.
Well, ang inuwatan local business plan na iwatan ko reasonable.
Well, when I
No.
look at our business
Ko
plan, I check
reasonable.
whether, or I look whether it's
Todo si
reasonable.
siya i-business plan na gumapot in adopto pa by review na.
Mhm.
No, gizok no understanding dyan no.
Of the
na
business
they're all
plan that I've
reasonable.
had an opportunity to review.
They're all reasonable.
Can
I
you
check whether it's
define
reasonable.
what you think a small business is in your personal opinion? What do you consider a small business?
No, gizok no definition gwen no. Since kwa izok no
In my definition,
preview gisti bandan no SBA no
because I have preview
no
under SBA,
small businesses
small
ma-define
businesses
como less than 500 employees.
are defined as
Lo
having less than 500
ginunatan
employees. If you
i-business tag ni siya giza CNMI.
if you see our businesses here in the CNMI,
Gisti na definition todo do man small business.
based on this
no?
definition, all the businesses here are small businesses.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm.
You kind of stated earlier that there was no specific process or guidelines or criterias that the panel members were using in rating these applications, correct? I mean, there was nothing written.
Nothing written, nothing specific. Lawyer rating, yeah, we did rate based on our conversations on the merit of the business plan. It's just not the matugi papa. Tadza tumutuli minutes.
Was there a reason why you guys weren't
Nobody takes
recording
minutes.
your ratings and your discussions? And I mean, did you guys not find that important enough to have it documented?
It's always a room for improvement.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that answer. So you didn't really have any criteria or guidelines.
Unggan guaha no guidelines.
Yes, there are guidelines.
I-rubrics guaha rubrics no
The
no
rubrics, there is rubrics
uusa como
I
guideline.
used
But
as a
the
guideline.
rubrics is not written. It's you don't have anything written. It's all by memory and based on discussions and meetings that you've had with.
Ginisyo ututulia edi rubrics. Lo,
I have the
very
rubrics.
very simple na rubrics is it.
Can you
It's a very simple
share with us
rubrics.
what's on
I
that?
rubrics actually finafay sinawa ko
The
guaha
rubrics actually asks
guaha
you,
salapi. No.
is there any funds?
Ko guaha no other no option no funding.
Is there any other
Ko
optional
ko
funding
no po provide is the no employment opportunities.
to provide employment opportunities?
No. Hindi kaya mas on top of that gizo ko no recollection pa.
That's
Lo, I'm
my
pretty sure
reflection.
na man masubmitted siya na rubrics wakati gizahan.
But I'm certain that those rubrics were submitted to
You
guys.
mentioned about employment.
Mm.
Did you guys verify if any of those applicants actually have employees?
I-business plan nililink niya ha na pumausay din na salapi para ofan man employer para ofan man nay no job opportunities.
the
Da
business
ma-mention
plan
na
would
ha
state
lokwe
that
offer
they
siya na
would provide job
posisyon.
opportunities.
When you personally was reviewing those applications, how do you determine how much to give based on what was requested? What would be your rationale?
Gizo ko rational watan offer on spending plan.
My rationale would be to look at their spending
sa
plan.
galunin no
Within that,
o kind of gira gi offer siya no o proposa ifigura. Pues gua naman
Mr.
diferensya
Taishi, may I
futuran
ask you to
mo
speak into the microphone? I can barely.
But gua na timang pareho futuran mo but at the end of the day we have to come up with a collective no recommendation.
Our numbers are not the same, but at the
Okay.
end of the day, we have to come to a consensus.
Earlier in your testimony, you stated that sessions are called, correct?
Unga.
Okay. How often are these sessions called? Was there a set schedule? Do you guys meet
Tawag
once
set
a week?
schedule.
There is no
Gua na
set
biyahin
schedule.
na no goma maisin.
Sometimes I ask,
Gua na biyahin na mafaisin zo.
sometimes they ask me,
Gua na biyahin na lekubisi zo.
sometimes I tell them I'm busy.
Has there ever been a time when the panel members did not meet in person but just communicated through communicated electronically via whether it's via text or email or
No,
phone
todo tempo paano no physically in person manaali.
No, the panel always physically
So
meets.
whenever a list is ready to be submitted to the governor for recommendation, the panel will meet in person.
Janggien i Bank of Saipan na asa miti lista.
If the
Pues
Bank of
sige na
Saipan submits a list,
maogan i-session.
then they call a session.
Who submits the list? Bank of Saipan or the panel?
No, i-lista nilili ko na.
The list that I'm talking
Idi
about
siya na packet siya ni man ma-vedit ni Bank of
are
Saipan.
those
Janggien
packages that have
esta
been
no
vetted by Bank of
no
Saipan
munajan ni dunia editing na
when they are done with
complete
their
este na packets.
vetting.
Pues no jadi comprende ko no si Mr. Castro sumstektinis siya na lista jagwiza no
My understanding is that Mr. Will
umahagan
Castro
i-meeting session para i-review pa.
Okay, so it is your
gets this
understanding
list
that
and he calls for a meeting.
when the bank is done vetting the applications, whether they're complete or not, a list goes out to the panel, and then it is Mr. Castro that calls the session for the members to meet.
Gan gua na biya,
Gua na
gua na biya lukyan na guahud
Yes,
sa ganesta
sometimes
laman
it's
ti
me.
man manogan, wonder ko Ngayon pa ta fan meeting.
If they haven't called for a
So
meeting,
what-
I wonder when the next
So
meeting would be.
it's that's the process.
That's a tada they said meeting na once a month, but twice a month, but siya.
Was there ever a time when each of you individually went to the bank to review those applications? Or is it always the panel that meets together?
It's always the panel that meets together.
Hmm.
Ilay ko kasi si Mr. Castro, since Guiza ko lang ni leader, Guiza kasi siya sumono kato
Because Mr.
So are you saying you
Castro is the
personally never
leader?
went there by yourself
not-
to review applications?
yes, taki makumbirazo para guaha no afaji no review session.
Okay. So I recall in the testimony from Bank of Saipan, Will Castro, and Mr. De Leon Guerrero, Secretary of Commerce, stating that there was no real process as to how the applications were reviewed, right? Basically, the bank would receive these applications, vet it, as you stated, and then it just goes into a box in this room, and there's no process in place as to how when these applications will be reviewed. It's not in chronological order. They would just dump everything in this room and basically to each his own. Whoever comes in reviews these applications. Are you saying that's not how it was done?
Para guaw tada zo no mano gato guawa na maisa put para be review no. Todo tempo no masangangani zo na ko
As for
guaha
myself, I don't
tempo
go
ko.
there by myself. They
No
always
ko
tell
guaha
me
tempo ko para be
if I have
attendees din na
time
review
to
panel.
attend this
I-
review panel.
Okay. In your in your personal opinion, since there's no process in place as far as chronological order, do you think it's fair and just that these applications were just thrown into this box and there's no structure in place, to review these applications as they came in? It's basically whoever that you just take a stack and start reviewing. And do you think it's fair that if you submitted your application, in September, and let's say September 1st, and it's now November or October, you still they haven't reviewed your application, but someone who submitted their application September 30 was already reviewed and awarded? Do you think that's a fair and just uh, practice for all the other applicants? Because that's kind of what was happening. Nobody, there was no structure in place, so it basically depended on whoever was reviewing whatever applications they were pulling, whatever list was being given to review. I mean, what do you say to that, to all those applicants out there who are still waiting for their applications to be reviewed?
Well, there's always room for improvement. And tema no ijilek ko na no stimulus program is
Just as I said, this is not a
Oh, yeah,
stimulus
I
program.
understand that, but I'm asking you.
pues janggin gua na individuals ya. Debi no
And if
makomprendi.
There are
Sama
individuals out
posa
there, they have to understand
gi office gi website. Na application
that it
is
was posted
subject
on the website that the
to the
application
availability of funds.
states
Janggin esto ko ki funds na.
to the
Ilig niya
availability of
loki
funds.
gi publication
The
na
funds are
no
finished.
program can be terminated without advance notice.
The program can be
Pues ko fair
terminated
but
without
to
advance
fair
notice. So is it
subject for
fair?
improvement.
There's room for improvement.
Too small cities will answer, but I'm asking you personally, do you feel that it was the way that the process went is fair?
Kidayan siya no personally sa guided sa
I
ginon
will not
official
answer that
capacity.
Okay,
personally
but
because I'm
put yourself in
on the
their
review
shoes.
panel.
Put yourself in their shoes. Would you characterize that as a fair practice?
Tang ginopegas siya gidapay pegas so gidon niya shoes na. By also loki
I was to put
na make
myself in
sure
their
no
shoes.
chutsuli no complete information janggin pa benol medyo application what conditions of the programs are.
I understand that, and I guess where I was going with that is that there were applications that were completed, vetted, completed, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that room, but were submitted first before other applications, and only
It's
to
gina
find out that.
naliliko there's always room for improvement
That's why I said there's always
gi
room for
gi
improvement
umensiona earlier na
because I mentioned earlier
na i-process ni available para go
The process that is available to me
is basically gaigi boxes siya gwini.
is basically that the
Hala
boxes are
hujung
here. Pull it
watan
out. I
watan
look.
ko gaigi siya elements as a
I
commerce.
Look if
Janggit
there are
immediate siya na
elements are there
elements
as
usap
commerce.
miti para
If they
no
meet the
discussion
elements,
dyan
I
to
submit for
collectively
discussion
arrive in a consensual recommendation. Inigi i-process
to
available
arrive
para go.
at the consensual
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Mm.
At any
Consensus.
time when you were reviewing that, there obviously there was a process in place. Was there any time when you felt that there was room for improvement?
Well,
And
Paul,
did you ever raise that concern to the panel and say, after reviewing hundreds of applications, I feel that, we could improve on this process just so that we can be fair and just to the other applicants, right? Was there any time when you felt that you needed to share that concern, or did you ever feel that there was a concern as far as process?
manalili ko, there's room for improvement. Congresswoman, sa po rin fa-faisin so ko fair.
That's why I say there's room
No.
for improvement, because you're asking me if
So
it was
durante
fair.
the process of review,
During the process of reviewing,
its Oko thoughts is basically to focus on a review of a business plans.
my thoughts was basically to review.
That's it.
So at
The
no time
applications.
during your review process did it occur to you that part of that process may be deficient and needs improvement?
Dispensal of besangan 1,000 mo.
Okay.
Sorry, but I will
That's
Other
your-
than
say
to
that
carry
that
on
never
my
came to
my
my thought.
No
responsibility.
problem.
Yeah.
That's your opinion. How do you guys rationalize the award as far as first round and second round? Like what is the thought process that's going through your mind when you're reviewing these applications and you determine that, let's give them this much first round and then second round this much, while there are other applications still pending? What is the thought process that is going through in your
Sang
head?
natin na istin i-kantidanin man mananay na.
When you look at how much they're
Tinahong.
given,
No,
it is not enough.
bulalan aplikante.
Mhm.
There are a lot of applicants.
Pues koparata na from pending isti siya i-esta man ma-award no los quantos. Sapot para ta no accommodate 1,000 litisinya.
So are we going to leave them as pending while we accommodate 8,000s that
no
are,
malignya na ta ajudoji ijesta manoi jat
my opinion,
tinahong no fondo no
it is better
of
to
funding
help.
no ja kosa kisinya no ufan successful gi business niya ja ufan contribute halum gi jota no tax base
So that they can be successful in their business and can contribute to our tax
No.
base.
sa tinahong tat why di man madaplika
Because it's
300
not
some
enough.
thousand
Some have applied for 300,000.
no di man manoy todo
They weren't given all of it.
no pesa na matto na isti ginasun second round na ginasokko
So when the thought
na
of the
malingnya tanoy just tanoy
second
ta
round
judoji
the thought of second round
sa
came,
janggin tanoy talo iji pumalo siya ni timunahong Kita ko
I
kita judada siya na
thought it'd be
tanafan
better to
mo si
give those who
struggle sa
received in the
tisinya
first
mamili
round.
jud niya no business plan. Ini ko personal thoughts.
Okay, so ta comprende no na tinahong funding, right?
Ay,
We've
o
established
comprende
that.
no na
Okay.
tinawag funding.
Yes, I understand that there's not enough funding.
Pues, I guess what I'm trying to understand is how did you guys come to a decision to award the first round and then do a second round? Why not just award them the entire amount and not break it into, partial payments? What's the thought process, or what's the rationale behind that?
Irrational gileno gizagawa este
The
no.
rationale is,
Jan no in
on
discute
my
este na
personal opinion,
is basically kulan mo ni na klase jang ginunay todo na sa ti machogwi dong na problema para siya. No.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Taisui?
Jangin nun ngay todo na.
If you give them all
No, jata tsogwe na.
and they don't
Dang plum problema.
do it, it'll be a big
No.
problem.
Pues kulan mo ni ji. Mela jata noy no didi jata li ko man seryoso ni
let's give them
pumatsoga fa pumatsogwe.
a little and see if they're
No.
going to follow the business plan.
Istige gizagwawe na.
This is me personally.
Okay, so you're saying that you awarded partially because you wanted to make sure that whatever funding you have already awarded, that they follow through, correct?
Ngan.
Can you give us examples of what those follow-throughs are? For instance,
You know, gikada business plan guys on no funding usage.
For every
No.
business plan, there's a funding usage.
Okay, kaya swaf.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember.
Just say for example,
Say, for example,
kaya recollect no business plan. Let's say it's on a business plan po famong kareta.
let's say his business plan
No.
is to buy a car.
Pues ano nata ni dya pas kareta na.
Then when you
Logaha siya mos.
consider the payment for the car, there are more.
No tanoy na ni dya sa kosa kisinya. Alis ututungwi do fani kareta.
More
But
to give to buy
Jang
the
ginilig na po
car.
famati ay puro famaan no makineria. No?
If we give them to buy machinery,
Pues inigi watan loki na mela jatanoy didiri zo porofane no na makineria kosa kisina po tutuhungwi. No?
then I consider that so that they can
Gikin ang predict ko
begin
ni Steve boost
their
program na
business.
kalan mo ni basta inanya boost paron man na pot tinutuna na no ulam mo na nagwasa lapi pero fan majuda todo no
I hope there's enough money to
No.
help everyone.
it's again alek ko na nagikin ang predict ko ti stimulus program isti
That's why, based on my understanding, this
Ja-
is not a stimulus program.
udisesya na todo di man aplikante matunga sa
I
grant isti
desire
jangging grant todo
But
man
all
malago
applicants know this.
da jangging loan
This
cost
is a grant.
Sina
If
kasi
this was a
man
loan,
no man manasun na yun na san dinstoro no na
they would
possible.
reconsider.
No. Lo ijige na giji rubric na liling na ko gwaha no alternative source of funds.
But that's why in the rubric
No.
there is an option for alternative or
Kasi ijige na
consideration for
watan
alternative
no na
funding.
watan ko by consider estis lo ti amidisti gizoku elements. Lo gwaha no otro talo na source ni sinya man maajuda.
okay, since usmasi no yun explain lo. So unai didi sa lapi sa pud and undetermined no na sige manisisita ni po matutuhon sa niya business,
Mhm.
right?
Again.
Well, this is a two-part question. So first, how much time do you give them before you follow through? And second, who follows through with these spending plans?
Well, beyond it's of scope in my question. Lo
The question is beyond my scope.
yeah. Logi sinabay sangan tayo no.
But I can say this.
Na kasi i gay aplikasyon no para
That
monitor
probably-
na no i program administrator.
The responsibility rests on the program administrator.
Sagi ko ng prendek ko ni review paano na Jangan esto mo
understanding-
na review isti
As a review
Zona Holum.
panelist, when I'm done reviewing
esta mo na
and I
ichitoke.
submit, my job is done.
Inigi ko ng prendek ko ni Zokuro.
That is my understanding of my role.
Is part of your recommendation to recommend this when the second award will be awarded?
Ay, janggin mo tam na gano China iparogwaha na desisyon no
No, when
ko
we get to
para
that point, to that decision,
managwaha second award. Loiji un fafaisin zo
provide for a second award.
haji
But
no
you are asking
follow up no jan
who
haji
is
para
the follow-up
inatan no jan kwantu tempo nai no.
and the
Tutungo
time
kwenye yung
frame.
fafaisin zo.
Oh, yes, that is the question that I
No.
was asking.
Pues gizagol ne beyond izoku scope no na question.
To
Sa
me, that's
taimano
beyond
liku
my
na
scope of
na izoku
question.
role gwini ko mo
Because I have a role
designate representative of Department
as
of
a
Commerce to the review
designated-
panel na it's basically just to review. E no siya na question ng fafaisin zo no beyond izoku scope no lo
those questions that you're asking me are beyond my scope.
na gizagwao gikinimprende ko na teniki no debiti na i program administrator no
Based
funalo
on my understanding, it is the program
monitor
administrator
no siya ti isaw
who
ni
answers
aplikante siya
to
ni
that.
man maward sa no man available sti manuncias ti para todos no iman interesante no
This program was
Pues,
announced to everyone who's interested.
monitoring and enforcement no deputy na i-program administrator no
The
kinimprende
program
ko no
administration
zaoy ti
should
para
be
review
responsible for the
paano no
enforcement.
para monitor and enforce pues istigi zoko take mo.
That is my take on this.
Okay, so as a review panel yourself, when you review an application and you've determined that you know that you will be recommending this business to the governor for approval, do you know at that point that you're going to award initial payment and then subsequently give them a second award?
No.
So let me give you an example. So if somebody was asking for $500,000, right, $500,000, and in your review you are recommending that you give 250,000.
Base kids niyan no
Based on their
funds usage, yeah.
Yes, but
funds
part of your
usage
testimony
plans.
earlier, you also stated that you wanted to give them a certain amount of money to allow them to get started, and then subsequently after that you would follow through to see if they really are following their spending plan, and then you would award the second.
Ay, tinigi no.
No,
Okay, so can
That
you
is
please
not-
explain then what you meant by that? Because I asked, how do you determine how much to give them initially and then how much to give them after that? And you responded by saying that you wanted to give them some seed money, right? Some initially, just to make sure, right? To make sure that they are following what's in their spending plan, and then after that you would go back and award them the remaining or whatever amount you guys determine it to be. Is that not what you're?
Ay, tinigi
Okay.
no inafsanan niya no usasangan.
no, that is
No
not what I'm saying.
usasangan
I'm saying
i second round na
the second round.
utungo nga natitodo man manonay.
I know that not everyone has received,
Kaya jigi usasangan na
and that is what I'm saying.
no utungo ha na ti finite i funding source.
I know
no.
that the funding source is not finite.
Janggien motweno na tempo po madisidi para no ugaha talo no ma-award gi second round ne.
When that time
No.
comes to award the second
Sa pod
round,
rason na estay sa lakpi dumididi. Go gya pinonyo ne gi kunimprende ko
in my opinion and my understanding,
na maulig niya ha tanoy just man ma-award
it is better to
la
give
cosa que
those who
sina
have been previously
ifani na
awarded
juda para
so that
ma-complete izo na business plan jangin sina
they can help
ja
complete
cosa
the
que
business
sina
plan
ufan man contribute halum gi sina may tax
so
bill.
that they can
No.
contribute to the CNMI tax base.
So I'm trying to understand the logic here, okay? And I'm so initially you were saying that I asked the question, why decide to give them partial and not the entire amount right? And your response was, well, and I'm trying to follow the logic here. Your response was, well, we give them something in the beginning. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you give them in the beginning because you wanted to make sure that they were following the business plan, the spending plan in the business plan. And then after that, once you guys, and that's where my question, my follow-up question came up, where how much time do you give them to make sure that they are following the spending plan, and who's monitoring and enforcing that, right? That's how my follow-up question came about, because you had responded earlier that you give them, a portion of the money initially. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand. I think I just lost myself here.
Ay, i, i, Alpha kekesangan gwini na
What I'm trying to say
na
here
jangging guahais na oportunidad
is that
para
if
no
there is an
umano'y
opportunity
second
to
round
give a
oportunidad
second
na
round,
no. Pes gi kanang prende ko gi opinion no na malik niya ha
it is my opinion
na
that it is
umano'y
better
i-just naman mano'y gifineni
to
na
give
na
someone
no
who
za
has already
kosa
received
ki sinya manina
so
juda
that
at
they can
least ni
help
para ma-accomplish
get
ito
help
niya business plan.
to accomplish their business plan.
Pues sige na ubibira tati, right? This is why I'm circling back to that same logic, okay? Because initially I asked you, why not just award them the entire amount if you've already determined that they have completed the application, they are going to be contributing into the economy, right? Whatever criteria that you were following, why not, knowing that there is a finite amount of grant to award, why not give them all of the money that they are requesting to move forward with their business plan? And you had responded by saying, well, we wanted to make sure that we just didn't give them the entire thing, because what if they didn't follow through? Correct? Is that
No, it's
right?
no, it's okay, no opinion, no, yeah.
Okay. So
Yes,
so
that is
it's
my
again,
opinion.
like I'm trying to go back to the logic and understand why are we awarding. Is it your testimony then that at the time when you review that application and you've determined it to be complete and will be contributing to the economy, they were going to get the full amount, but you were going to only pay them or award them a certain amount just to make sure that they're following their spending plan, and then subsequently award the rest? There was already this understanding in the thought process, in the logic, that you were going, if they were requesting 500,000, that you will be awarding them the entire amount of 500,000, but because you wanted to make sure that they are going according to what their spending plan is, you are only giving them 250,000 this time around. And whoever is monitoring and enforcing, and this is why I asked the timeline, the time frame, how long does it take for them to follow through before the second award comes out? And the reason why I'm asking Mr. Tysigwe is because there have been applicants that were given the award, the first award, and then subsequently after that, just days later, within days later, they were awarded a second round. And so how much time does it take for whoever is monitoring and enforcing to follow through? Are they following them around and say, can you show us receipt that you've already spent the money that you've been awarded, you've spent on this and that? Like, I'm trying to understand, how is it possible that some applicants were able to receive their first award or their second award within days, and others received it weeks or maybe a month later? I have yet to review the documents thoroughly, but based on what I can see on the surface, I've already observed that there were some applicants who received their second award just days within the first award. If that makes any sense to you. What is the
Tama na,
rationale?
Taimano ay ko na yun na jangging gumahe no na oportunidad para
Just as
second
I
round na
said, if there is an opportunity like that,
Di opinion no na malik na ha
my
na
opinion, it is
umano'y
better
di esta man ma-award
to give those who
gifineni na
have been
sa
awarded
kosa kisinya manina juda mos ki izunya business plan.
so that it can help them more in their
Okay,
business.
Esta, comprende esta. I guess where I'm going with this is there is no fairness in how this was all distributed, because there were some applicants that have received their first award. Until this day, they're still waiting for, they don't even know if they are going to be receiving a second award. And because the funding is winding down very, very quickly, there's no guarantee that they will be receiving a second award. And as you stated, in your personal view, in your personal opinion, why not just award these applicants that have already been initially awarded the remaining, right? But there's going to be some problems because there's not enough funds, and we don't know how much more is going to be infused into this boost program. And these awardees who have received their first round will be left hanging, and they won't be able to proceed or carry forward their business plan because they are lacking funds. And while others are still pending and to this day have not received any response from the bank or from the administrator or whoever that needs to give response, that they're even being considered. So I think we just need to put it out there and let the people know who have applied not to have their hopes, because the likelihood of them receiving any assistance from this grant is very unlikely, correct?
Tay mano anay ni ma-mention sa ma-publish na
Just as it was
application is
previously
subject
mentioned and
for funds
published
availability, no? That
upon
the program can be
availability of funds.
terminated without advance notice, no?
Right.
Sa tay mano ay liko na ti stimulus program esti. Pues ti sinan na para no umapega no na para high niya hope i aplikante na, no?
That comprende. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that we just need to be a little bit more transparent, right? And be fair to the people, to everyone else who have applied and are still waiting. It doesn't take a lot to communicate. A phone call, an email. I'm sure there were email addresses provided on applications. A simple communication, just giving them a simple status of where they stand with their application would be very much appreciated by all these other applicants who are still waiting. That's all I'm saying. A little bit of transparency and a little bit of consideration and courtesy to the people who are still waiting. That's all. Anyway, I'm done with my questions. Sidu Smasi for your clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members will. I'll go with the Vice Speaker, and then I'll just finish up with the few clarifying questions, and then we'll break for lunch. Recognize Vice Speaker.
I'll yield my time to you, Chairman.
All right. With that, I just wanted to clarify a statement. You said that there were a lot of applications and there just wasn't enough time. I just wanted to ask what were you referring to when there wasn't enough time to review these applications?
Kizagwal na tinanak ka jo kasi 10 to 15 minutes pa by review unun application, no? Considering thousands of application manholum inigi ileleko na tawsa tempo tunga na tawsa tempo teniki jan lokwe tinaong fondo de para no umakubri todo este siya i no manholum siya aplikasyon niya.
So if there wasn't enough time to review the first batch of applications and not enough funding to even support those first batch of applications, why was it extended twice after that?
Depende.
If you couldn't have finished reviewing all the first batch of applications that were received, why extend the deadline to review another set of applications that you might not have time for, and then extend it one more time after that?
Kiusasangan natin ang tempo po ma-review i first batch, no? Ma-review i first batch. No, konti first batch. Kasi na recall konti first batch. Kasi i Bank of Saipan no sumistete na na informasyon, no? Afay lileko i esta utungwa na thousands reaches the thousands applications, no? Inigi leleko na timanang tempo teniki jan lokui fondo mas dumididi.
I understand that, but if this program was to end in 2024, why couldn't you just have reviewed it in January and February of next year? Why? What's the rush in trying to get them out within the first 2 months of opening up the application process?
Toda Ross Gwini no congressman lo i-process a continua gwi muna no ko i-program pero ulas up to 2024 tutugo no lo subject for availability of funds.
Right. So even why? So if that was the case, even why hasn't any application been denied? It seems like every
Sa-
application that came on your desk was approved,
Mm.
and so far nothing within the first 240 some applicants that you reviewed were denied.
Gizo ko knowledge taja man ma-deny.
Right, because that gives the impression that every application that will be coming through will get approved.
No, tinigin na of course janggin subject to funds availability na.
Okay. I'll get to that. I'll get
Mm.
back to that line of questioning. The other comment that you made was, or I guess the statement that keeps coming back is contribute to our tax base.
Mm.
My concern is that we already have established businesses that have already been contributing to our tax base, and all they want to do is expand so that they can further contribute to our tax base. But yet, companies that have zero financial statements are getting much more or getting awarded, whereas the companies that have already been giving to our coffers have not been reviewed or have not been awarded. And so, how can you justify giving a brand new company with zero financial statements 200,000 over a company that's been contributing at 10,000 or nothing at all?
I guess Izoku statement na to expand a tax base. No. Sina kasi differential with taatan a definition of expand a tax base. Usas ti janggin pon expand a tax base na. Janggin singka na kumpanya zombaba talo 5 na. Inigi un expand a tax base. Ay tija ay 5 gi. Pasinigi na kinemprendi uusa na palabra ni para uma-expand a tax base. Itsigi na na programa a considera lokui siya nuevo, a considera lokui siya esta no man existing. Pues i-programa ni kinemprende ko na para todos. Ti kumikiling niya na i man existing nga za mga na parogwaha no interesante ni malago na pumababa no business niya sa gwayo niya passion para offer siya. Kasi nigi ikinemprende ko na usangan no patata expand cinema tax base.
You've used both terms, expand and contribute. But my concern was the contributing part. But when you talk about expanding, one can think that you're looking at other different industries. But even just looking at the list of what companies are being awarded, how many businesses in the restaurant industry was given boost versus how many was given in the construction industry, where we know that there's all these FEMA monies coming in and all these projects coming in, versus how much was given in the rental car industry when there's already, so there's all these different industries that I don't know if the panel has looked at to see whether these boosts would actually boost businesses within that industry. And so, the terms that you're using, needs further clarification. But that's something that we can bring back and go over again when we get back from lunch. I just wanted to get that clarification out before we recess for lunch so that we can also regroup and try to see how we can move forward. And so with that, Mr. Taisugui, thank you for coming in this morning. We will recess until 1 1:30 p.m.
Okay.
All right, members, we'll take a recess 1:30. Thank you.